Have you ever wondered why your indoor plants keep dying even though you water them just right? Well, one reason could be that you're not giving those roots the drainage they need in order to thrive. So today we'll talk about how to choose the right pot for any indoor plant and make sure that their roots stay happy and healthy. In this video, I'm going to show you why certain pots are better than others, explain some basic drainage tips, and teach you exactly what to look for when you're shopping for a new pot. And if you stick around until the end, I'll also share a couple bonus tips that you're not gonna wanna miss. Let's get started. When it comes to choosing the right pot, there's a lot of options out there, and most importantly, you have to choose the right size. If you think of all the different types of shoes that are out there, it's kind of like trying to find the perfect pair for you. You might like the look of those high heels, but if they're too small or too tight, your feet are gonna hurt and you won't be able to walk very well. Or maybe you prefer sneakers, which would be more comfortable and better for running. In this case, choosing the right pot is kind of like choosing the right shoes. Too small or too tight, and your plant struggles to grow. Too big or too loose, and those roots might end up burning and drying out. So let's start with the basics. If your plant is still small, it doesn't really need a huge pot. Try to pick one that's only 1 or 2 sizes larger than the nursery pot. Just like Goldilocks and the 3 Bears, you want a pot that's just right for your plant. You don't want to go too big because if there's too much space between the roots and the side of the pot, those roots can end up drying out and burning before they can spread out and fill the extra room. Once your plant starts growing, you'll know it's time to move it up to a bigger pot. If you can see the roots growing around the inside or the bottom of the current container, then that's a good sign that you should consider upgrading to a larger size. Now that's an upgrade worth bragging about. As for the material, the most common type of pots you'll find at the garden section are plastic, terracotta, ceramic, and fabric. Plastic is inexpensive and lightweight. They come in all colors and sizes, and if you happen to have a quirky shaped plant, you'll definitely be able to find a pot to match its needs. Terracotta is a classic choice that's made from baked clay. It's durable, breathable, and helps to prevent root rot, especially when compared to plastic pots. But it's important to note that terracotta can dry out faster than plastic, so you may need to water more frequently. Ceramic pots are often glazed, making them less porous than terracotta, which means they retain moisture longer. They're available in a wide range of styles and can be a great way to add some color or personality to your plant. Fabric pots are also becoming increasingly popular since they allow for better air circulation and drainage. Plus, they're portable, and some even have a self-watering feature built in. No matter what material you choose, it's really important to make sure that your container has proper drainage holes. Drainage holes are openings in the bottom of the pot that allow excess water to escape and prevent the roots from becoming waterlogged. Without these holes, your plant can easily suffer from root rot, stunted growth, or even die. And speaking of drainage, it's also important to know that different materials drain differently. For example, a plastic pot without a drainage hole drains really slowly, whereas a terracotta pot with a drainage hole drains pretty quickly. So you'll need to take the material of a pot into consideration when deciding how often to water your plant. But what if you find the perfect pot that has no drainage holes? Well, luckily there are a few tricks you can try. First, you could double pot by placing the pot inside a second container that has drainage holes. Fill the outer pot with soil and place your plant inside. The excess water will be able to escape through the bottom of the inner pot and out of the drainage holes in the outer pot. Another option is to add a drainage layer to the bottom of the pot. This can be as simple as placing a few pebbles or broken pieces of pottery at the bottom to help with drainage. But one thing you'll never want to do is cover the drainage holes with soil or pebbles. This can block the flow of water and cause your plants to become waterlogged. Now that we've talked about drainage, let's discuss a few other things to consider when choosing a pot. First, you'll want to think about the style and color. There are endless possibilities when it comes to pots, so it's important to find something that you like and that fits in with your home decor. Don't be afraid to experiment with different colors and textures to find the perfect look for you. You'll also want to consider the size and shape of the pot in relation to the plant itself. A tall, narrow pot is a great option for plants that grow upwards, while a wide, shallow pot is better for plants that spread out. For example, succulents and cacti do well in a shallow pot with good drainage, while a tropical plant like a fiddle leaf fig prefers a taller pot with more room for water retention. And speaking of succulents, these little guys actually don't need a drainage hole in the pot at all. Since they store water in their leaves or stems, they're pretty tough and can tolerate a wider range of conditions. On the other hand, sensitive tropical plants like African violets actually do need that extra drainage, so you'll need to find a pot that provides it. Another factor to consider is whether or not the pot has a removable bottom. Now, this can be helpful for a couple reasons. First, it can make it easier to water your plants since you can remove the bottom, fill it with water, and let your plant soak for a few minutes. Then you can flip it over and let any extra water drain out. A removable bottom can also make it easier to harvest the roots if you ever need to repot your plant or check for pests and diseases. Now, let's talk about a few mistakes to avoid when choosing a pot. First, don't use a pot that's too small. This can restrict the root growth and cause your plant to become root bound, which means it's time to move up to a larger size. We already covered that earlier. Next, don't use a pot without a drainage hole. This can lead to root rot and kill your plant. Luckily, you can always improvise to add a drainage layer or double pot as we discussed earlier. Finally, avoid using a material that's not appropriate for the type of plant you're growing. For example, a sensitive tropical plant will not do well in a plastic pot without drainage, whereas a succulent would be just fine. When it comes to caring for your indoor plants, choosing the right pot is crucial. Consider the size, material, drainage, and style when selecting a pot for your plant. With a little care and attention, you can ensure that your plants thrive in their new homes. What kind of indoor plants do you have? And what are your best pot and drainage tips? Be sure to drop a comment below and share your thoughts. It's always fun to hear from fellow plant lovers. And remember, the right pot can mean the difference between a thriving jungle and a struggling plant corner. So don't underestimate the power of a perfect pot. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you learned something new. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you want to learn more about plants and get exclusive content, join our free newsletter by clicking the link below. Until next time, happy planting.